Hi everyone, this is Ghaleon from Poker Mania. We have a MTT SNG coaching this time, which was voted by users. So I have started some of the 45 and 180 men games here. Seems like five of them running now. So hopefully you now see my screen and hear my voice. If someone can make sure of that on the chat. Well, here on the four-way pot, I'm not going to be bluff catching with bottom pair. Pretty good spot to limp behind with the suited ace overall. I can actually move some of these tables. Okay, so I called here with the pocket H, pre-flop aggressor checked, so this is pretty standard spot for me to value bet and protect my hand. Well, this is kind of ugly overall, but I'm not sure that it's $2.5 game and I still have overpair and open-ended straight draw, so I think I'm going to go broke here. It's possible he has some sort of two pairs and so on, but yeah. But the open-ended straight draw will give me quite good equity, and it's not impossible at all that he just have some sort of top pair. And here I'm definitely going to call this 60. It went checked on the flop, so he should somewhat rarely have a ace here. But he did this time. Okay, so nice to see that everything works. So I'm planning to keep the table amount on lower than eight tables, so there should not be such big hurry spots. And I chose to left the 90 men's out if no one necessarily want those, because I haven't played that much of those knockouts, or have not studied that much of those knockout situations overall. Well, not much to do here. Nice sizing for the 3-bet. And here, with the pocket queens, I'm pretty happy to be 3-betting. And with the caller, I think I'm going to go bit over, say something like 220 from the position should be fine. Like 240 would be the maximum I see reasonable there when we have position. And here it's really dry flop, so I want to bet, but I want to keep the sizing relatively small so that it would be luring the opponent into the pot. So I think bit over 200 there is fine. Even with the small sizing, if I want to be betting the turn and river, I can very easily get the remaining stack in. So one more game coming, I now have 5. Here with the king jack, it's okay to be defending. And yeah, I'm going to be calling this min bet, but it's not surprising if we face a raise behind. My game plan, they is asking, well, I'm going to be starting these games, well, at least 1 hour and 10 check whatever we want to load new games or not. I haven't really thought about how long I want to be coaching this evening, so I will keep this bottom right spot open so that we can be moving interesting hands here. H6 off. Well, I'm going to open it because of the antes also in the play. It wasn't perfect spot because the PP had been somewhat active. And pretty standard c-bet here. Will line calls. I think I'm going to be betting again because I would assume he can be calling with ace high and such, and those are going to be folding quite a huge amount of time usually to the second bet. But now it didn't work, so well, there is some point in third barrel that we can be getting him to fold some of the better drawing hands that has missed, but I don't think he will fold anything like that. But we still had pretty decent amount of outs. And here I see that the flop villain calls. I see no point to really bet here, but there is some value in check calling because flush draw has missed. So And he didn't bet the turn, so he probably has no king. Well, most of the time, sometimes he might. This time he had 8, maybe he might have called the river bet, but I think still that the river check is going to be better. And Marcus Y says is fine with the standard 12-hour set. Probably not quite that long, but let's see. You can't see the action buttons on bottom table. Pocket deuce is here. I'm just going to fold because there's not that much value in calling here, because if the sidepot is going to be empty, it's going to be tough to get value for the set. And here from the bottom I think I'm going to be raising. It's pretty loose in this spot, but usually these limpers are going to be pretty weak players overall, so I would assume that we are going to get enough folds in these sort of spots. It's more often some sort of pocket pairs they are going to be limping usually. Yeah, we didn't get the fold, so I'm just going to give up. He called with the cut shot. And here on the upper right, quite a nasty spot overall. We hit the queen, but it's possible he has a king. I'm just going to be calling that turn and check call the river. It's either that or just folding the turn, in my opinion. And this time he had the 4, which he turns into bluff. But kind of ugly, but I think the worst mistake you can overall make here is to call the turn and then fold the river. Because there's so little behind that if you assume that you are often enough ahead of the turn, then you should be calling it down. I mean, the turn check sub would not be that bad either, because if Villain has some draw, he's definitely going to be calling the sub, but might just check behind on the river. So I think both on the turn are fine options. If it's not if it's not too annoying to not see the action buttons, I would prefer to keep the tables as they are, but I can also move this bottom table a little bit up. So we have 6 tables. Let's add one more 180 man. I have quite recently started to play these MTT SNGs. Of course, I have been playing with the. And here we have really good pot odds, nice suited connector hands, so calling is totally fine, but this sort of flop we are of course just giving up. And here Villain makes huge shove here, but I would be surprised if he has something better, like basically almost ever, so it's pretty clear spot to call. I would probably have called nines also, but lower than that would start to be pretty marginal. I think nines would have still been fine, and probably some ace queen plus. And yeah, as Danita says, ace queen I would probably push or fold on the turn. I think push shoving that would have been fine also. Okay, so I move it a little bit up. I think it should be visible now. Maybe a little bit like that. So I haven't really been playing these 180 minutes and 45 minutes that long so far. So there might be some ICM leaks in my game, but 80 minutes I have been playing quite long. And here, if this general guy would not have called, I would have been ISO shoving. I think it's pretty likely he has something relatively strong here when he just flats. And he had, well, we only have 12 hands, but pocket tens. Yeah, it moves the auto table away also when I click that shortcut key. And Marcus Y asks, would I have folded the turn in ace queen hand if there were no flush draw? I think it would have definitely been much more reasonable to just give up, because then we would need to be putting him much or a bit more on the floating range and so on. But it would have still been quite ugly to fold overall, because he seemed quite fishy and aggressive, but yeah, definitely tougher spot. And I didn't really love the situation, even as it was. And Christian comments that usually the pushes in the micros early are small pocket pairs. And here we hit nice. Board is quite drawy. I'm going to be c-betting bit over half pot here, because if he has somewhat connected here, I think he's going to be calling. And king caked blind versus small raise is pretty standard to defend. But here, readless, I would have probably folded to c-bet, and I don't see much reason to be bluffing with the hand. And here I think there's our argument to even be shoving the turn, because queen quite nicely improves his range, and he might be calling with the lot of draws as well. It's just that if we bet like small here, it's just kind of a problematic that he might be calling, and then if he improves he's donk shoving, and otherwise might be check folding, so that's why I don't really mind that move. And here with pocket sevens, I'm going to be making min 3 bet to ISO this short stack. And quite interesting spot here with the pocket sevens. relatively active looking player shoving, so I think this is pretty close whatever we want to shove. I think I'm going to be shoving here. Pretty much the bottom of my range though. It's just that we get quite a huge reward here when they fold. Like 400 in the pot already. And suited king, I'm going to be shoving here. Huge antes, so big blind is in practice 200. So it's not really that deep stack shove. And villain makes pretty standard cold here with ace 5. And king 10 is again a hand that if it's unopened to me, I'm going to be shoving it because I don't want to be raise folding versus these blinds. And I think raise calling would be bit too ambitious inducing. And here with the 8-10 suited, I think this is again good spot to be calling. Of course, we don't have much of info on the will line. And here with the king deuce with these pot odds, we are definitely calling with any two range. And I think here we can. Well, it's kind of ugly, but calling once and folding to further aggression. I think this board is not going to be bluffed, but I think that much at least bluffed, but I think folding the flop right away would be a bit too weak. Of course, it's if we had some info that the will line is on the tighter side, then I think the fold would be okay. Twitch chat. Should I be following that as well? Probably so. Pocket fours, even though this will line seems very loose, we don't have fold equity most likely, and he's opening from UTG, so just folding. Yeah, should not have click it like that. So 7 tables, that feels pretty good. I have one $30 45 men registering, but doesn't seem to be getting the players. Here I think 10-3 off is going to be a bit too weak to be calling. If he had like 450 I would be calling, but I think that's not going to be good enough. And here I'm going to be just shoving the queen jack. And a7 off. It's quite close, but I'm still folding. And in this right table spots I might be shoving even any two, though this player seems wrecky, but we don't really have sample. And here versus two opponents I'm going to be c-betting bit bit higher sizing. And Kuba is saying, I think we are ahead with the 10-8 shooter at turn because Villain bet same amount as at flop. Well, well, I'm not sure if it can be read as weakness because the stacks were really short. So even though he bet really small compared to pot, I think he would have had just like half pot on the river or something like that. So if we are calling tier, are we then calling the river as well if he bets? So I think it's quite ugly situation to be continuing. And here with the pocket sevens, it's fine to be shoving. Even raise call would be pretty okay, but then there are these sort of some players which might be just flatting also, so not really loving that situation if it happens. And I have 60-second delay set on here, so it's going to be a bit over 1 minute in practice, probably. Some protection for my games as well. Though most of these games are going to be pretty well. I'm not sure if $15 games can be considered as small anymore because not that much higher are running even. Yeah, it was a dry port and like from like somewhat like hands which makes sense to be betting like that. There I might be some Jack 10 that he improves into open-ended straight draw and wants to create fold equity. Of course, it might be some total air sometimes, but and Kachekov says in the Twitch chat that been watching Poker Mania videos last few days. Yeah, there are a lot of good content from many formats. And Kuba says that he might have check raised here. If it's about the 10-8 hand, I don't not sure if there's much point in raising because if he has some total air then he's just going to be folding it. And if he has better that he's value betting, I heavily doubt that he would be folding. Here with the king 4, real line seems pretty tight, but we also get really good pot odds. I think calling is fine. 9-6 again. Quite close, but I think folding is still better. And 10-8 shooter definitely shoving here. Even without antis it would have been totally fine to shove. Like here with the ace 9, I think, well, ace queen would be pretty standard. Ace jack would probably be the bottom for me from the aces. The line seemed pretty tight also. And here with the pocket deuces we can see that there's not really that deep stack wheel lines behind, so we can be open shoving here even though we personally have 20 pp. But effective stacks are the only thing that really matters. And always good to remember to check that what effective stacks are and not just watch that we have 20 pp. I don't want to shove or min raise. But like if in that situation we had some, like let's say 2 players with the 4000 behind also, I think just open folding would have been best, because we don't want to risk 20 pp here. And then jack suited is okay to solve even if we are in the UTG. We only had like 6.5 pp and the adjusted. And here ace-9 suited. We don't have much info on the opponent, but he only has 5 pp, so ISO shoving should be fine. And ace-2 suited we have to call versus the small button shove. And Kauris king for 3 bet. You mean the blind versus blind situation? It would be option, but I didn't have any real info on the will line, and well, so far he seemed to be somewhat tight, so I would like to have some sort of info on his style to play from the small blind to be 3-bet bluffing that much. But I still think that when he min raises and there are antis and so on, it should be fine to be defending it. But of course it's a hand that we can also be turning into bluff. If I had some sort of indication that he's stealing relatively wide, then I would have maybe preferred that, even if the king 4 plays a bit better if the bill line range is wider, but I still think that the proposal playability is not that great, so it should be fine to be turning it into bluff. This APP is it's it's just the anti-adjusted big blind. So that it accounts the antis as well. So if I would be looking here, well, it's actually not updated correctly now. I think the blind just increased. So, but the point is that it adds the antis into blinds, so that, for example, here with the 200, it would be something like 140 into big blind and 70 into small blind. And Marcus Y asked that there was hand I min raise folded from the button with 20 pp deep. Yeah, if I know that the will line is aggressive, then I prefer the limping. But the thing in here is that from the most players I don't have that much hands overall. So it's kind of tough to know how they act in those situations. But limping there is definitely fine option. But it was a bit better for the min raise also that the small blind was so shallow that it would have been easy call versus him, if I remember the situation correctly. And yeah, for Christian, against more than 50% steel, I think it would be fine to be 3-bet bluffing with the king blocker. And in those situations, it doesn't necessarily mean that much what we have in our hand, because I just sometimes go for 3-bet with total crap. And here with this stack size, I'm just going to be shoving like with total crap into 3-bet bluff if I think that the villain range is very wide and he's not going to be playing against it that much. And it's quite tough spot to be playing widely against 3-bet because you are out of position. So flatting is not going to be that great of option compared to like button versus small blind and so on. And pocket 8s here. We don't have much of stack overall. And again, we don't have much of data on this limper guy. From any rec, this would be kind of trappy looking move overall. Well, he was trapping at least in his own mind. Flipping and this time not winning. For him, I think it would be much better overall to be shoving there. And with the 9-jack suited, I think grazing is fine, though it's kind of ugly if the big blind shoves on us. We probably have to call with the antis into play because we get quite good pot odds. And hand like 9-jack is not that often dominated. Yeah, the most important thing in blind versus blind 3-betting are mm, seems to be quite active player, but I don't really like to be flatting in these situations that much when the stacks are relatively shallow. Hmm. Yeah, here we have to call time banks. Too much talking. With the king 10 we were so shallow that pretty much have to go with the hand, even versus 2 players. And king 6 suited is a bit too weak from this early position. And queen queen, pretty easy shove. And here with these stack sizes we can't really be opening the ace 5. And here it's pretty interesting spot. This guy just calls. We are way ahead of the original, this very short shallow player, so I think shoving should be fine. And ace 4 calling there is quite questionable. River saved us most likely. Yeah, both had Jack 10. Well, losing that would have been quite ugly with the Ace Jack. Here with the suited hand, BB is simply too short to be shoving. If he had like, let's say, 6 BB or so, and if they both seemed tight, I think even shoving that might be okay. And of course here on the right, any pocket pair is going to be practical nut hand. And pocket 8. Relatively close to final table. He can't have fold equity versus the BB. I think I'm just going to be folding. It's pretty clear that he doesn't have that many bigger pocket pairs, so I'm not totally sure of that hand, but I think folding is going to be better. Because when the BB is always going to be calling, he shouldn't be shoving that wide, but of course now we are blind versus blind, so it's pretty easy snap call. And fine shove by him. Let's say thank you for him. I have always been pretty much in the thinking that it's always good to be polite to your opponents in the poker tables, because you don't want to feel them bad for playing, especially if you are in some cash games or some heads up SNG type of game that you want to be line to state and they can easily leave, so that's definitely where you want to be polite, extra polite to your opponent. And I think it's quite funny when some players, and here we don't have much info. Well, he had been on the 6th hand, he has been active, so, and of course basically versus anyone we pretty much have to be calling with the king 10 here, or king 7. And pocket 7, even if this bet is small, I'm not going to be staying here in the 3-way pot. Only 7 is going to be helping us. Yeah, so it seems. In the final table, I think I'm just going to be racing here and hoping the button will want to be shoving a bit wider than he would be calling our shove. And Marcus Y asked if 9s would have been called in spots where I folded 8s. I think it would have been. I think I would have called 9s. And I'm not totally sure if the fold was good with the 8s either. But there are some ICM concerns when we are quite close to final table, and the fact that the PP was so short, so it should be decreasing his shoving range quite a bit. And here on the right, I would be shoving any ace with this stack, but suited ace is going to be really strong. And queen 10 is also strong enough. And here it was seven players paid, so we don't have. Yeah. Well, this is questionable when the PP was so short. I didn't notice that because we are not going to be getting folds of that often. Of course, when the other player calls, it might be making that his other player tighter, but I think this was probably a mistake with the PP so short. We can actually mark the hand to check it out. And here we have so much in from our stack that we have to be calling any two. Hope we are alive. But yeah, I think the queen 10 was too loose with the small stack PP. But if he had been deeper, I think it should be fine. This is probably again quite close to final table from the stack. So well, it is final table. Yeah, Danita says that might fold weak offsuit aces. Those are not that great, but well, I think it's pretty close because there is also quite big weight with the fact that the blinds are coming to you, and with I had something like 5 PP, it's going to hurt us really bad. Here with the 3 jack we can't be shoving because the small blind is so short, and the big blind is not that deep either. So I don't think that trying to apply ICM pressure with that hand is going to be that great. Six-8 shooter is actually quite interesting because this PP guy or both of these blinds should be really tight if we shove. Of course, that's not always the fact because we don't really know anything about these players, so they might be doing something absurd. Mm. Ego is asking on the ace-8 suited. Well, I think I'm going to be shoving here. From the small sample, Villain seems fishy, so I think he can be even folding some portion of time or have some queen 10 type of hands. So Twitch's question was that am I misclicking sometimes? Yeah, it happens. Should not be happening with these sort of table amounts though. But when the table amount goes like over 20, it's going to be easier to be doing the misclickings. And he even folded, which is really nice. And this Dexter guy I probably have played against on some other formats also. But when I normally play, I'm mostly using uh, keyboard shortcut keys, so I'm not using mouse that much. And pocket force we can be shoving here because these bigger stack players are facing huge ICM pressure, and it's really unlikely they have calling hands if they understand anything about the ICM side. And I would assume that this Dexter guy at least understands. Same pocket pair. And yeah, the queen 10 was probably too loose. Maybe even if the baby had been deeper. So yeah, we have only 4 tables left. So let's add more of these. And here on the right, Villain is min racing with really shallow stacks, so we definitely are going to be playing with ace. Little bit better kicker, but not this time. Oh yeah, the break. Well, it's not probably not going to be starting anyway. So let's keep small 5-minute break now.